What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you a couple things on my ZR1. I was going to show you three things. Unfortunately, my camera freaked out and deleted the footage of one of those things. That one thing is the DSX auxiliary pump install, which is really a requirement if you're doing E85 at this power level on a ZR1. I don't know whether I deleted it on accident or the camera didn't record correctly or what. I thought I had it, but unfortunately I don't. So I'm going to show you the E85 sensor install, which it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. You do have to remove the fender. Some people say you can get to it with the fender on. I have no freaking idea how, but I'm going to show you how I removed the fender and how I did that. The other thing I'm going to show you is I bought some replica wheels. They are 19 by 12s. The factory ones are 20 by 12. I also bought some drag radials. They are Nitto NT05Rs. Same thing I put on my Trans Am. And if you saw the last video, I was struggling for traction. I'll show you the clip here. Now, I don't expect these wheels and tires to fix my traction issue completely, but hopefully what it will do is make it a little safer to drive. Right now it gets no traction in third and fourth gear. Hopefully I can at least get that. And really you need to go to a slick on these cars, but it wrecks the stock clutch, and I'm not ready to put a clutch in this car yet. It still is on the stock clutch. So this tire size, 345 3019, like I said, it should help with as far as rolling traction. Maybe we'll see. We're going to try it anyway. We're going to get started with the E85 install first, and then I'll show you the process of how I'm going to put the wheels on. To run this wire down into the computer, we're going to need to take the wheel off, so make sure you're protecting the wheel or the brake if you got carbon ceramics with the pad. Take the wheel off, and then we need to remove these two clips to get this panel out of the way, and there's two 7mm here along the bottom. We're going to get this completely out of the way, and hopefully we'll be able to reach it after we get it out. So unfortunately you can't reach that without pulling the fender off. So to pull the fender off, we're going to take all the bolts off on the inner liner. Of course, there's some bolts on the top side here. There's a few that are hidden underneath that we need to take out. There's one in the door jamb, and then you're going to have to drill out the rivet that holds the front of the side skirt on. There's one rivet here right where I'm pointing, and then there's another 7mm on the bottom. So we're going to try to get this fender out of the way, and then we'll move on to pinning that harness. The fender is now off, and I have access to the computer. I was really dreading doing this, and one of the main reasons why is I've never done it before, but it's really easy. Once you get all of these bolts out, there's a couple sneaky ones. You do have to pull up the front bumper. If you just pull this straight up, I did take two of the bolts out of the center in order to give me enough room to get to that guy. And then underneath, there are three 10mm nuts. One here, and there was one over here. So other than that, I just was able to cut the rivet from the back side and it fell out. And then the next hardest one is this one here. You have to go over the dry sump in order to get the one that's in the fender. It actually comes in from this side, not from the door side. I opened the door thinking it might come from the door. But once we did that, the fender was able to slide off, and we have really good access now to the computer. So to unplug these, you literally slide this red safety back, you press here, and then this will swing off and out of the way, and you can pull the connector itself off. Once we have that off, we need to take this black cover off there's just two pins or two plastic clips on either side, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut this zip tie so I'm able to move the wires around. The next step here is we need to take the terminal lock off. So there's two little plastic pieces on either side to pull this off, and you're going to just use a flat blade screwdriver. Be careful not to break it, but we're going to pull that out of the way, otherwise they say it won't seat properly. Now that this is pulled back, we need to take the plug out. You can see that there's these little black plugs that are plugging all the spots that don't have wires running through them. Now you can see they're labeled. There's 1, 15, 29, and 43, which corresponds to the instructions here. So basically from the 1, we're going to count down, and the 5th one, we're going to pull the plug out, and that's where the new wire is going to push through, which I did go ahead and run down the side here. This is the piece that I pushed out off the 5th spot. You can see there's an opening now, and that's where the new wire is going to go through. Now I've got the wire ran through the black plastic and then this piece of rubber. It actually pushes through really well. I pulled it out of the way so I could see what I was doing. You need to make sure that you get it all the way down in the cavity in the right pin. So we're looking for the 5th pin where we knock the plug out. But all the way down in the 5th cavity, make sure it's all the way seated. So you don't want to be able to see any of the metal essentially on the end sticking up. And then we're ready to push it all back together. I pushed it back together, everything clipped back where it was supposed to go, and then I went ahead and put a zip tie on that I cut off so these wires don't move around. Now we're going to put that black cover back on. I'm going to cover this in loom or tape, and we're ready to hook it back up. So to hook this connector back, push it. It's not going to push all the way on. You're going to swing this lever back just the opposite. You're going to hear it click, and then you're going to click your safety into place, and we're all set. And like I said, I'm going to cover that wire, and then we're ready to put the fender back on. So this is just the reverse process. Be careful not to, I'll probably put some tape up against some of the pieces so I make sure not scratch anything. Once you have the fender back bolted up, like I said, it's just a reverse process. One of the hardest things to get to is that one that's in the center here. What I did was I used a magnet in order to hold it in place. The other thing is make sure that your clip's in place. Mine had fallen out, so I had to take everything back apart. The inner fender's all back together. I went ahead and put the wheel back on, getting ready to set it back down and torque the wheel to 100 foot-pounds. And we're complete with this section. The next thing we need to do is chock the front wheels so it doesn't roll off on you. And I'm using a low profile jack that I got from Harbor Freight. I'll list that down below as well, but this thing is super handy on lowered vehicles. One of the best jacks I've ever used, but we need to jack in the appropriate spot. You can use either one of these cross members in the back. The front one is preferred. I'll list a link to the proper jacking points on these cars down below. But once we do that, we need to get the back wheels off the ground. And before we pull the wheel off, in your glove box or in the back of the car, if you bought this car new, sometimes even if you didn't buy it new, there should be some protectors for your carbon ceramic brakes. Now mine did not come with that, so I went to Lowe's and bought a piece of foam. This is just to protect pipe in the wintertime from freezing, and I cut some slits in it so it actually bends around and goes around your carbon ceramic rotor. Now, if you nick that up, you would have to replace it, and they are very, very expensive, and you don't want to do that. So make sure that you do this before you take your wheel off. And the easiest way to do this is to come from the back side of the wheel, but if you don't have that ability, or you're trying to do it before you lift the car up, you can snake it between the wheel and make sure that it's seated properly before you pull the wheel off. You don't want to scrape that up. I want to show you guys what this looks like installed. You can see that it is sandwiched around the rotor. So it's pretty easy to put in. Now we're ready to pull the wheel off. You're going to need a 19 millimeter to take the wheel off. I'm going to use an impact. We're going to whip this thing off real quick, get the new one on, and then we'll take that out, go to the other side, do the same thing. Do is figure out which cap we're going to use. I'm going to use the factory cap, the Corvette logo. They did come with a flat, just plain cap, and of course remove the piece of foam that you had, and you don't want to be driving down the road with that. And then we're going to torque the wheel. So GM specs, they call for 50, 75, and then 100 in a star pattern. So that's what we're going to do. Torque both sides down and get it back on the ground, and we'll take a look at it. So I took it down the road trying to get it to, you know, level back out. When you lift an independent rear suspension car, sometimes they tend to set a little higher, and it still hasn't settled quite where it needs to be, but the wheels look pretty good. It's a pretty close match. It's not identical, but you know, it's an aftermarket, it's a reproduction wheel, so it's not going to be identical to the you know, the factory spec, but looks really good. I think this is kind of the best for street use anyway, daily driving, unless you go with like a really expensive wheel. But the only other thing, guys, is you are going to have to reset your TPMS sensors. I did install TPMS sensors in this. I'm going to have to reset those. I don't have the box here with me to reset it. I don't think there's another way to do it other than having the actual box, the electronic box, to reset those, but that's something that's going to have to be done. And you know, we're going to take it out for a video in the future and see if that helps the traction issue, at least in third and fourth gear. Like I said, I didn't think it was going to launch from a dead stop and hook, but it should be better. So hopefully you like this video, guys. Hopefully it's informative, especially the E85 part. I'm sure you guys know how to put on tires, but I want to show you kind of what my idea of an option for tires was without maybe wrecking the factory clutch yet. I'm not quite ready to put a clutch in, so maybe in the future, and of course if I do that, I'll show you guys a video. If you like this video, please smash that thumbs up, hit the subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and hit the little bell icon. That way you know every time we drop a new video. Of course, I always take your suggestions. Post them down in the comments. Anything you guys want to see, any ideas for future videos, I'm always up for that. Hit me up on Instagram, it's TWA Motorsports. Email me, twmotorsports@hotmail.com, and stay tuned to see what happens next.